Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Bill Howe Family of Companies, providing San Diego with plumbing, heating, and air restoration, flood and remodeling services for over 40 years. Call 1-800-BILL-HOWE or visit billhowe.com. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marco Shiley, and by the following. And by viewers like you. Thank you.
New affordable housing is coming to San Diego, and soon. Thank you for joining us. I'm Maya Trabulsi. A former extended stay hotel in Mission Valley is turning into an apartment building. KPBS reporter Katie Anastas says it will provide homes for more than 150 people currently living in shelters or on the streets.
Construction starts next week to turn this former hotel into dozens of homes. They'll get new beds, doors, paint, and flooring. The building will have a community room and office space for providers of supportive services. It's expected to be complete in April.
The typical housing project, if we're starting from scratch, even with the most advanced technology, we're talking years. There's just so much that goes into it. 6 months, I said it before, I'll say it again, 6 months is warp speed in the world of creating housing. It is hard to imagine us moving much quicker than that.
The 161 units will remain affordable for at least 55 years for people with extremely low income. For a household of one, that's up to $31,000 per year. The San Diego Housing Commission will also provide vouchers to help people pay their rent.
We know that finances are the #1 reason that people end up being homeless. They may have other issues that they're dealing with, but there's nothing that says that someone who's struggling with their health or mental health or even addiction has to end up homeless.
Funding to purchase and rehabilitate the hotel comes from the state, city, county, and the Regional Task Force on Homelessness.
None of this would be possible without a massive investment by the state of California and the cooperation of local partners, including the service providers that we count on to operate these facilities successfully. They're the ones that will work one-on-one with residents to break down the barriers that have contributed to their homelessness and make sure they never return back to the streets.
Earlier this year, the state awarded $35 million in funding to the San Diego Housing Commission through Home Key, a statewide effort to quickly convert existing buildings into housing. The converted building will bring the number of homes in San Diego created through the Home Key program to 608. Katie Anastas, KPBS News.
Well, happy Friday, everyone. As we head into the weekend, I am tracking a pretty big warm-up, especially for the afternoon highs. There will be some clouds, but overall lots of sunshine here for both your Saturday and Sunday. And for the overall outlook for the forecast, especially near the coast, I am tracking warm, breezy, and overall nice weather here for the last weekend of October. I'll have a detailed look at that forecast coming up.
The 2024 presidential election has been getting most of the attention, but hundreds of congressional seats are up for grabs, and those determine how much our next president will be able to accomplish. And as Julia Benbrook reports, it's a tight race for the control of Congress.
Polls show that something unprecedented could happen this year. The House could flip from Republican to Democratic control, while the Senate could flip from Democratic to Republican control. In the House, all 435 seats are up for grabs. Republicans currently control this chamber with a very slim majority.
I'm spending these final closing weeks in the swing states, in blue states, in toss-up districts for the House. I'm absolutely convinced. There's an energy out there right now. I'm convinced that we are going to win the White House, the Senate, and the House.
But Democrats need a net pickup of just 4 seats to flip the lower chamber. In the Senate, currently controlled by Democrats, only a third of the 100 seats are on the ballot every cycle. To flip it, Republicans need a net pickup of either 1 seat if the incoming vice president is a Republican, or 2 seats if the incoming vice president is a Democrat.
It's basically going to be about getting our voters out in the ground game and making sure that we get people out. I believe we're going to hold our majority, but it will be close. It's going to go right down to the wire.
The most vulnerable Democratic incumbents in the Senate are up for re-election in states that Trump twice carried comfortably. John Tester in Montana and Sherrod Brown in Ohio. Reporting in Washington, I'm Julia Benbrook.
Our election coverage includes a look at the race for Congress in Imperial County. Voters will decide between the congressman who has held the job for more than a decade or someone new. KPBS Imperial Valley reporter Corey Suzuki tells us more about the candidates.
Hey Imperial County, you might have heard that there's a race happening for Congress this year. That's because one of your representatives is up for re-election. The race is for California's 25th congressional district, which covers the bottom right corner of California. That includes Imperial County and some parts of Riverside and San Bernardino. Whoever wins this race will serve in the House of Representatives in Washington. Representatives can propose new federal laws and advocate for the needs of their district in Congress. In Imperial County, that means this office can make a big difference by asking for support on issues like the shortage of local hospitals and doctors, or the ongoing environmental crisis around the Salton Sea. This office could also play a big role in shaping some of the more forward-looking projects happening locally, like the emerging lithium industry and the environmental justice movements for protection of public lands. There are two candidates on the ballot for this election, incumbent Representative Raul Ruiz and financial planner Ian Weeks. Ruiz is a Democrat and has been serving in the House since 2013. His priorities include addressing the Salton Sea and climate change, protecting Medicare and Social Security, and supporting veterans. Weeks is the Republican nominee and has run for office before. He doesn't have any political experience other than that. He currently works in financial advising, according to his campaign. Weeks is running on a range of issues, including reducing government spending, restricting immigration, and limiting access to reproductive care. You can learn more about the race and both candidates by going to KPBS's Voter Hub. Corey Suzuki, KPBS News.
Voting rights advocates are hitting the ground across the Imperial Valley. Coming up, a look at their efforts to fight decades of low voter turnout. People are already mailing in their election ballots in San Diego County, but if you want to cast a ballot in person, early voting centers will open soon. The early voting period begins on Saturday. There are nearly 40 early voting sites available. Many more locations will be available on Election Day. That's November 5th. And you can find a list of locations on the KPBS Voter Hub. Some of the features include explainers on many of the high-profile races and ballot measures. And you can find the link on our homepage, kpbs.org. The KPBS Voter Hub is also available in Spanish. A blot on U.S. history. That is how President Joe Biden described the government-run system of boarding schools that ripped Native American children away from their families for 150 years. KPBS reporter John Carroll has more on the president's apology.
But the federal government has never formally apologized for what happened until today. I formally apologize.
Biden was emotional as he delivered the government's formal apology, saying on behalf of the federal government that he was sorry for what he called the sin of a government-run boarding school system that for decades forcibly separated children from their parents. The president briefly described the horrors inflicted on thousands of Native children from the early 1800s through 1969.
Generations of Native children stolen, taken away to places they didn't know, with people they never met, who spoke a language they had never heard. Native communities silenced. Their children's laughter and play were gone. Children would arrive at schools, their clothes taken off, their hair that they were told was sacred was chopped off, their names literally erased, replaced by a number or an English name.
Biden spoke on the Gila River Indian community in Arizona, but the schools were here in California as well. One was in San Diego's Grantville neighborhood, St. Anthony's Industrial School for Indians. It operated from 1886 to 1907. The pain still runs deep for many Native Americans, especially those still alive that were forced into the schools. And though Biden received a warm welcome, not everyone in the indigenous community was satisfied. The director of the Lakota Peoples Project and Sacred Defense Fund, Chase Iron Eyes, said an apology is a nice start, but it is not a true reckoning, nor is it a sufficient remedy for the long history of colonial violence.
Apologize. Rewrite the history book correctly. I have a solemn responsibility to be the first president to formally apologize to the Native peoples. Native Americans, Native Hawaiians, Native Alaskans, and federal Indian boarding schools. It's long, long, long overdue. Quite frankly, there's no excuse that this apology took 50 years to make.
John Carroll, KPBS News.
I'm Amna Nawaz. On the next PBS News Weekend, the successes and challenges of tackling youth obesity with weight loss drugs. That's Saturday on PBS News Weekend.
San Diego has a ways to go before meeting its goal of net zero greenhouse gas emissions by the year 2035. KPBS Metro reporter Andrew Bowen says a new interactive dashboard tracks the city's progress.
On the new website's homepage, you can see the latest inventory of San Diego's emissions, 8.6 million metric tons of carbon dioxide in 2022. The city aims to cut that in half in the next 6 years. The dashboard allows you to search through all the city's 190 actions related to climate change, such as increasing the urban tree canopy and phasing out natural gas usage in buildings. Chief Sustainability Officer Shelby Bousseau says emissions are going down and progress is incremental.
We've had some baby steps to get this all off the ground, but we expect some giant leaps, I think, over the next couple of years.
Cars remain the city's largest source of emissions. Driving in San Diego went up slightly in 2022, but the average vehicle was slightly less polluting. That led to a 1% reduction in transportation emissions compared to 2021. Bousseau says the dashboard's purpose is transparency and accountability, and she hopes it inspires San Diegans to get involved.
If there are partners who find something of interest on this dashboard, a program or an action where you think you can be of assistance or have an innovative idea, then we would love to hear from you.
You can explore the city's climate dashboard at climatedashboard.sandiego.gov. Andrew Bowen, KPBS News.
Restaurant chains are taking some extra precautions following an E. coli outbreak at McDonald's. The FDA says slivered onions on some quarter pounders might have been contaminated, but it's still investigating. Burger King says 5% of its restaurants use the same onion suppliers as McDonald's. They have disposed of all of those vegetables. And the parent company of Taco Bell, Pizza Hut, and KFC says it is removing fresh onions from menus at some locations just to be safe. Children who have coughs that go on for weeks could be dealing with walking pneumonia, which has been surging in the U.S. this year. Infectious disease experts say it could result in those children needing a different antibiotic regimen to treat it. Ivan Rodriguez has the latest.
Walking pneumonia is caused by a bacteria called Mycoplasma pneumoniae, and cases are spiking this year, especially among preschool-aged children, potentially for a few reasons.
One is better diagnostic test. Number two, it's cyclical. We do see an increase in the fall, late summer, early fall. And number three is it's getting actually back to pre-pandemic levels.
Between the end of March and the start of October of this year, U.S. Emergency Department visits for pneumonia related to the bacteria increased significantly, especially for 2 to 4-year-olds and 5 to 17-year-olds, according to the U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. Dr. Danny Branstetter, the medical director of infectious disease at Wellstar Kennestone Hospital outside Atlanta, says the go-to antibiotic for pneumonia is amoxicillin. But since mycoplasma isn't treated by amoxicillin, doctors are using other antibiotics.
We often call it azithromycin. People may know that as a Z-Pak, is often treated this type of pneumonia.
Dr. Branstetter says the good news is that a majority of kids and young adults will get over a mycoplasma infection without treatment. Still, parents can keep an eye on these symptoms and make sure prevention is a priority.
Parents should be on the lookout for a dry cough and maybe persistent over several days. And the kids may not be severely ill, but may feel crummy. Now, don't forget the prevention is cover your cough and sneezes and make sure you wash those hands.
Ivan Rodriguez, KPBS News.
A Vista resident has been hospitalized with a case of dengue. County health officials say it's the second case of the mosquito-transmitted illness in San Diego. The first case happened earlier this month in Escondido. County Health says the two cases are not related, though. Vector Control is treating about 60 homes in Vista through Tuesday. Over the last few months, voting rights advocates have been hitting the ground across the Imperial Valley as part of a new effort to get more people ready to cast their ballots in November. KPBS Imperial Valley reporter Corey Suzuki says they're fighting an ongoing battle, decades of low voter turnout.
It's a warm evening at a voter registration event in El Centro last week. In some ways, it feels more like a party. There are tacos and face painting. A DJ plays and the last bit of evening light. The vibes are intentional. The event's organizers want everyone to be excited about being here. But they also have some serious plans. Their goal is to get more people registered to vote in the last weeks before the election.
I feel that a lot of people in the Imperial Valley perhaps might not be aware of what is at stake politically.
Crystal Quesada is the Imperial Valley director of the ACLU, one of the main organizers of the event.
In the past March primary election, 18% of eligible voters actually voted. And so that was the lowest voter turnout rate in the state.
18%. That was the number of eligible voters in Imperial County who turned in their ballots for the primary election earlier this year. It was the lowest turnout out of all 58 counties in California. And that election wasn't an outlier. Imperial County doesn't always come in last, but over the last 20 years, state election records show the county has consistently trailed behind most other counties in the state.
Honest to God, I don't ever remember, oh, it's voting day.
Benny Andres is a professor of history at the University of North Carolina, Charlotte. Andres grew up in the Imperial Valley, and he says this pattern is part of a long history.
And so there's this tradition of not voting because you've never voted. Your parents never voted. I don't remember my parents ever voting.
That tradition, Andres says, didn't happen by accident. In the beginning, it was part of a power structure created by white settlers who first claimed the land and started farming in the valley. As more people of color started moving into the region, those wealthy farmers used voter suppression tactics, like residency requirements, to hold on to their influence.
And so in the Imperial Valley, as time went on to the 60s and 70s, the tradition of non-voting by minorities, right, especially Mexican Americans, right, and if you're an immigrant, you don't vote, right? So the tradition of voting, it was suppression. It was not encouraged. Civic life, participation in civic life was discouraged.
Those same tactics aren't used anymore, Andres says, at least not in California. But they have left a lasting impact on turnout and the culture around voting, and on the power structure of poverty and inequality in the valley. That legacy is what voting rights advocates are pushing back against this year. Over the last few months, a coalition of local organizations rallied by the ACLU have been hitting the ground across the county, trying to get more people registered to vote and energized about casting their ballots.
These are years of laws and regulations and policies that in a 4-year time cannot be changed all in one setting. It can't even be changed in 8 years.
Kamika Mitchell is with the Imperial Valley Social Justice Committee. She says this new effort to get out the vote is about the future of the valley. That's why this year, her organization is focusing on high school students, sharing information about how to pre-register and highlighting the upcoming races.
There's going to definitely be a complete different change in the next 5 to 10 years compared to someone my age or even young, or older, sorry. And we want to be able to prepare them for that.
Quesada with the ACLU agrees. When she was young, she felt like she had to leave the valley for school and work. She moved to Sacramento to go to college and worked in the legislature for 10 years before eventually moving back to raise her family. Quesada hopes boosting voter turnout will make things like local schools and the regional economy better. She wants things to be different for her kids.
My hope is that my kids don't have to move out of Imperial County to pursue an education the same way that I did. And so we're really hoping that those opportunities are provided here. And so the way that we make that happen is by having our people vote.
Back at the voter registration event in El Centro, the evening is winding down, but the mood is still upbeat.
I feel really welcome. I feel like it's part of the community.
Crystal Quesada's cousin Vanessa is a teacher and lives in the neighboring city of Imperial. She's already registered to vote. She says she turns in her ballot every year since she became a citizen 18 years ago. But she's glad to see more conversations happening around the significance of voting.
As the grown-ups or as the older generations, we need to maybe talk more about it, about the importance. It is your right to vote, but it's also your responsibility, you know?
She thinks we should all be having more conversations about the beauty and maybe the luxury of living in a democracy. In El Centro, Corey Suzuki, KPBS News.
And we want to let you know about our plans for election night. KPBS will have special coverage of the local results starting at 10 o'clock on television and streaming online. We will also have updates throughout the night on KPBS FM.
As we head into tonight, I will be tracking some mild conditions with overnight lows in the 50s. Future track radar is showing that this evening we'll see mostly clear skies. Some cloud coverage will start to work its way in here as we head into early parts of your Saturday and Sunday morning. But overall, Saturday afternoon is looking A-OK for us. Not really tracking much of a rain chance. So for tonight, we'll see partly cloudy skies, more cloud coverage there across the coastal areas. But overnight lows will be a mix of 40s and 50s here for tonight. 51 tonight for both Oceanside and Camp Pendleton, 57 in San Diego. Heading into your Saturday, this is going to be the overall setup. Very warm weather here across the Four Corners and the Rockies, but across the far west coast, we'll see average conditions and overall some pretty nice weather. So San Diego County forecast here for tomorrow, lots of sunshine. We'll see temperatures in the 60s for the mountains, 70s and 80s here near the coastal areas, and even mid-90s across the desert areas. And then as we head into Sunday, there will be a chance of rain, but that chance of rain is primarily going to stay well to the north. We're going to stay dry here across central and southern parts of California with, once again, that warm and dry forecast dominating here as we head throughout the next couple of days. Here's a look at your coastal forecast, your 5-day here. So once again, for Saturday and Sunday, we'll see partly cloudy skies giving away to lots of sunshine here during the afternoon hours. Highs will be in the mid-70s on Saturday, upper 70s, pretty warm on Sunday. And then after that, as we head into next week, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, looking A-OK. Temperatures will be in the low 70s. We'll see a mix of upper 40s to low 50s here as we head into the late parts of October. A little chilly start here for Tuesday, Wednesday, but overall not too bad. As we go inland, temperatures will maintain in the 80s here for your Saturday and Sunday, with morning lows in the 50s before temperatures moderate in the 70s as we head into early parts of next week. Across the mountains, we'll see a mix of 60s for the weekend, but look at that big cool down, especially on Tuesday with freezing temperatures possible Tuesday morning. And then in the mountains, looks like we'll be in the mid-90s this weekend.
A new art installation at UC San Diego invites visitors to pick up a paintbrush and breathe. The project, which is called Breathe With Me, uses art to promote mental health and connect communities. Danish artist Jeppe Hein developed this mindfulness painting practice after a panic attack.
It's definitely an art project who started because I couldn't breathe myself, and I practiced a lot of breathing exercises, inventing these small lines, and then to give it to someone else and to have people participating. For me, I think art is about opening up people's heart and creating a moment of being aware.
Participants can add their own breath lines to the artwork at UCSD's Epstein Family Amphitheater from Thursday until Saturday. And there is a new exhibit at the Japanese Friendship Garden in Balboa Park, and it's perfect for Halloween. KPBS arts reporter Beth Accomando explains.
This Halloween, I want to introduce you to some monsters you may not know.
So yokais are Japanese ancient monsters. People from all time, they embodied their thought and fear into any item. So their anxiety or fears turned into yokais because they believe that anything has a soul in it.
Over here we have an umbrella, which is, it's a great manifestation of this idea of the spirit that's within everything. And so the umbrella is one of those. And yeah, they manifest themselves by, with an eye and usually a tongue. And you can see examples of also lanterns I see throughout here. So that's how the yokai can manifest themselves.
But yokai can be more than just monsters, says National University Arts and Humanities professor Remi Tadaishi.
I think yokai describes any kind of phenomenon that's out of the ordinary or is unusual. It could take the form of these monsters, but it could even be just any kind of unexplained natural happening. You could attribute that to yokai as well.
So yokai can be an ordinary household item that comes to life when it's older than 100 years. Or it can be spirits, ghosts, shape-shifting monsters, and anthropomorphic animals. Tadaishi recalls one that made an impression on him as a kid.
Well, as I'm looking at all of these, this wonderful gallery here of the yokai, the Yuki Onna really stands out to me because it's actually my favorite. It's a spirit that comes back for revenge or has some reason for sticking around in the material world. There was a television series called Kaiki Daisaksen, and in the final episode, the episode was about the Yuki Onna, and in the end, it turns out that she is real.
The exhibit has the 1968 film, known in the U.S. as The Great Yokai War, running for visitors to watch. Like Tadaishi, Amiko Scudder has childhood memories of yokai and pop culture.
We grew up with yokai because more cartoonish, scary story.
A more traditional rendering of yokai can be found in the art of Matthew Mayer, which is featured in the exhibit.
So this time we have a partnership is American artist. His name is Matthew Mayer. So he is fascinating for the yokai. He introducing Japanese yokai all over the world. So we have nicely in the partnership with him, and he can allow to use for his illustration.
The yokai pop-up exhibit at the Japanese Friendship Garden may be small, but it'll open your imagination to a wide new realm of supernatural possibilities this Halloween and beyond. Beth Accomando, KPBS News.
You can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org. Thanks for joining us. I'm Maya Trabulsi. Have a great weekend.
Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Bill Howe Family of Companies, providing San Diego with plumbing, heating, and air restoration, flood and remodeling services for over 40 years. Call 1-800-BILL-HOWE or visit billhowe.com. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marcos Shiley, and by the following. And by viewers like you. Thank you.